I've been a car enthusiast for as long as I can remember. Some of my earliest memories were looking at cars that my dad liked. He migrated to the States early on. He had a thing for Benzes, right? C-Class and E-Class. I loved looking at those Benzes and the silhouette they had, right? I didn't know much about driving at the time, what you're meant to do with a car, but I remember just looking at those cars and admiring them. As I grew older, I understood that cars were for driving and there was a certain level of fun to be had. And I remember when I went to people's houses, if there was someone who was a bit older, a teenager, someone who could drive, had their license, I would just interview them about cars. I would say, what's it like to drive a car? Trying to get that little bit of insight. How does it feel when you press the throttle? I spoke to this dude, right? He must have been 17 or 18 at the time. And I said, what is it about cars? What sort of insight can you provide me? He said to me, it's actually not the acceleration or the throttle that's fun. It's the handling, right? It's the turning of the steering wheel. I still remember that because I was blown away. That was absolutely mind-boggling to me. I said, what? The steering wheel? That's just slowly as I grew up, I realized that, cars are more than just about pressing the pedal down. It's a whole experience. So I've been a car guy for the longest time and I've appreciated a bunch of cars, right? Honda Civics, Mercedes Benzes, BMWs. I've owned so many cars, but I have made a lot of car mistakes. I've made car mistakes that have cost me, if I was to really calculate it, since I was able to afford a car and since I bought my first car to now, I would say my car mistakes have cost me $50,000. And that's life-changing money, I think, for most people. It's life-changing money. I do have some regrets. I want to share this story with you so that you may learn from it. If you're in a stage of life where you're starting your car journey, perhaps you can watch this video and avoid some of these mistakes. So guys, as soon as I graduated out of university, I'm a civil engineer. I graduated in 2016. Thankfully, I was quite blessed to get myself a nice engineering job, a starting engineering job. Pretty much 4 months after my job, I financed a Mazda MX5, a ND MX5. It was 2016. It had just came out. It was built in the Hiroshima factory. I remember I was getting updates that your car is being built. It was probably one of the first allocations. I was so desperate to get that car, right? Because before then, the only cars I'd driven were my parents, right? And for university, I had a Ford Fiesta. It was a automatic dry clutch car, open diff, front wheel drive, no real performance focus, though it did handle really well. I was really just itching to get myself a proper enthusiast car, which a Mazda MX-5 is, right? Rear wheel drive, limited slip differential, power to weight ratio, looks sleek. It had just come out. What's not to like? I had some of my best memories with that car because I remember I would finish work and I would just drive that thing for hours. It was mind-blowing, right? I enjoyed it so much. I drove it harder than anything I've driven. It's a very reliable car. I launched it. I did, everything under the sun to that car and it never missed a beat on me ever. As I owned the car, I started to realize that I did not like finance. My monthly payments were around $600 and I could afford that comfortably because of my job. A part of me always thought, why am I financing this thing? Is the $600 worth it? Even though I was having fun with the car, I didn't want to really sell it. I kept thinking to myself, is the $600 a month worth it for the car? Is it worth it? Definitely don't think it was worth it now. And I didn't think it was worth it then. And also started to feel a bit restricted, right? Because a financed car, you can't really get rid of it that quickly. You've got your payments, got to fulfill them. Often you could be upside down on your loan. Brand new car depreciates, which my MX-5 did handsomely. So fast forward, I was dealing with all those feelings, and then obviously I got married, I had a family, and I had to get rid of my MX-5. It was just a two-seater. There's no room for a backseat. My financial situation was such that I couldn't afford two cars, so the MX-5 had to go, and in had to come a Camry. Painful lesson I learned, again, about finance is when you sell the car, you don't get any cash amount back. Whatever the buyer gives you, you end up putting that back into the car to pay off the finance company, which I did. So when I bought the Camry, I had to start from zero. I had to put my own savings in. And thankfully, I was starting to learn that savings are important and buying your cars on cash are important, which is what I did. I bought my Toyota Camry. It was a 2019 on cash. I bought it used, certified pre-owned. Thus, I started to realize the freedom in buying your cars on cash. I started to see the value. And guys, that Camry allowed me to grow because the next move I made was upgrading to a bigger family car. I could still only afford one. But the Camry had good cash in it where I could sell it, add a little bit of cash, and get the next Toyota, which I did. And then came a time where I had a bit more savings to afford a second car for me, right? A fun car, because a Camry and those regular hybrid Toyotas, they're just not enthusiast focused, right? I paid my dues. I did 3 years driving a very basic Econobox. Finally had enough money to get myself a Suzuki Swift Sport. It was a used model. It was only 4 years old. It's a turbo model, the ZC33. That was a really fun car, and that was a good balance between depreciation, reliability. It gave me a bit of performance. It was a warm hatch, right? I really enjoyed it, and I was happy with my purchase. Again, I got that car on cash. Then I saved a bit more money, and I thought, okay, what do I get? At the time, I was going through a tough period with my job prospects. This was a couple of years ago. The economy really came to a neutral to a downturn, right? Especially engineering, you're very much at the whims of the economy, and the economy wasn't doing good. I was going through a tough time, and I had some money saved up, and I thought, I'm going through such a tough time. The Suzuki Swift Sport is fun, but I'm itching for something a bit more. And I went ahead and bought myself a BMW on cash. I sold that Suzuki Swift Sport, made money on it, right? Got my cash, added some in, and bought a BMW. And here comes another mistake, right? I thought I'd learned that lesson, but clearly I hadn't, because I bought this BMW, and within 10 months, it had robbed me of $14,000. Depreciation, repairs, and maintenance. $14,000. I had to get rid of it because I didn't want it to rob me any further. I got rid of it. I said, okay, it's a lesson learned, and I got myself a Toyota GR Yaris, where again, I had to add a substantial amount of money because that BMW was worth so little just after 10 months. But it was a lesson learned. I didn't want to make the same mistake, so I bought myself a Toyota GR Yaris CPO. And this thing has not depreciated. It has not cost me anything in repairs. Thus, we arrived to today and the lessons of a 31-year-old car guy. I am definitely not well off because of that BMW. That $13,000 or $14,000 that the car lost me, that's money I needed. Because of that, I am in a tougher situation where I do have to watch my bills. It has costed me, right, in terms of my lifestyle. And looking back at it, it wasn't worth it. The BMW was fun, it was a great car, but the depreciation, $14,000, which is a lot of money for someone to save, just gone down the toilet. No one got that money. Who got that money? My mechanic got a little bit of it. The depreciation is just, that money was just gone into the ether. I regret getting that BMW in one way, and in one way I don't regret it, because I started my YouTube channel and my Instagram channel because of it. I started exploring some side hustles because of it. I think it's a lesson that probably didn't need to be learned. I had, it was a second time learning that lesson. And, I can only say, guys, that be very careful when you make these car decisions. A lot of people have it tough out there. Thankfully, I'm not in that situation. And I hope the story can serve as a lesson. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.